again for being here with us. We have JoAnn Crohn. She's author, parent educator, a teacher, and the founder of No Guilt Mom. She's going to be talking to us about you're probably doing too much. And as mothers, all of us can relate to that. JoAnn, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to get into this because even as a mom and no guilt mom, I still think I'm doing too much. So
I know, and because we all probably are. So what inspired you to start the No Guilt Mom?
So I was an elementary school teacher for many years. And when my son was born, and he was my second child, he was born in July, and I didn't want the class to start with a sub. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a year off. And during that year, I started working on my site, and I realized that there were so many parents who they didn't have the community and they had all this guilt weighing on them, that I started writing about it. And I started writing about discipline and positive behavior, as well as the stuff I took from my own teaching experience, how to get kids to do homework, how to encourage siblings to get along, and all those things that parents so desperately needed. But there's so much guilt and shame surrounding those things, that it's not something that we ask for help for. So I really wanted to be that source that parents could turn to and be like, it's not you. There are total ways around this. And let me show you how.
I think that is so cool that you wanted to do this because you were seeing how desperately these parents needed that type of help. So you introduced Juggling All the Balls, BALLS. What do each of those letters represent?
You got to love a good acronym. We're all about the good acronyms.
Oh yeah, I love it. Makes it way easier to remember. That's for sure.
Yeah. So BALLS stands for boundaries, aids, and that's visual aids, learning aids, whatever. Loose, laws, and subcontract. And we just like to say we go balls. And it's just funny.
I mean, you can't pretend that wasn't the first thing that came to my brain. So I'm glad that you pointed that out.
You're like balls.
And I'm like, really? That's awesome. All right. Well, let's start with boundaries. What exactly do you mean by boundaries?
So with boundaries as a mom, you need to know your own boundaries because we all have them. We all have those instances where we could be completely happy one moment and then all of a sudden something triggers us and we get very upset and our patient goes down to 0. And that's really a clue that one of our boundaries was just it was just passed, something just happened. And so knowing those boundaries is really important. And if people listening, if you don't know what your boundaries are, the best places to start are time. Time boundaries are so common. What is my time versus what is my kid's time? And when are they able to ask me stuff and interrupt versus when do I need a focused time to be alone? And then another common boundary is space. What is my space that I have control of versus everyone else's space where they can do whatever they want in it and it does not affect me.
Okay. So it's basically knowing how much you can handle. Knowing where it is, because sometimes we tell ourselves that, oh my gosh, this isn't a big deal. I shouldn't get upset about this. But really it is to you. It's one of your boundaries that you feel comfortable. You want to respect that. Okay. So knowing your boundaries, A is for aids, not that type of aids. Visual aids.
Visual aids. Again, sometimes you sacrifice for the acronym.
It's worth it. It's totally worth it. Like I said, I'm never going to forget this.
I know. So aids is visual aids. It's those things that kind of could remind people about what your boundaries are so that you don't have to constantly tell them. One of the visual aids that I like is I have my phone always on my desk. And if I can't be interrupted, my kids see a timer going because they know I work in these focus blocks. So if they see the timer going for that focus block, they cannot interrupt me. I will get extremely upset if they do. So that's one aid. There's another that was mentioned in the book, Indistractable, which is such a good book. It's a princess crown that or any kind of hat But if you wear like the princess crown or the hat or anything your kids know that, hey, this means that I cannot be interrupted, that's a great aid as well. And it just prevents the whole, being like, oh, I told you not to interrupt me and I need my work time. Instead, they know that they need to handle things themselves during that time, unless they're bleeding or dying.
And how old are your kids?
My kids are 12 and 7.
Okay. So they get it. They can understand. So that might be a little more difficult for the younger kids. Have you noticed that?
So it needs to just be tweaked a little bit for the younger kids. Younger kids can definitely understand like those aids, but they cannot be expected to do it for longer time periods. Like my kids are good for like 30 minutes at a time, but like younger kids, like it could just be a situation where you're like, I just need 5 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yes, seriously. Oh man. Yeah. My 2-year-old will not leave me alone. So I might try and implement that.
All right. Yeah. 2 is hard. 2 is like lock yourself in the bathroom.
Yeah. And they still somehow find a way in, I promise.
You see the fingers under the door.
Oh yeah, exactly. Mom. And L is for loose. Describe what loose means.
Loose is all about, it's never going to be perfect. Like when you first start doing these boundaries and when you first start using visual aids, like it's not going to be perfect all the time. And we need to embrace that messiness and embrace like sometimes the imperfection, because if we like set ourselves a schedule that our kids automatically like railroad and like don't want to do it all, it doesn't help to get upset. It helps to keep it more loose and more like general times and boundaries and like aids that you could use for your kids, because it's all an experiment when you're first putting these into place. You're seeing what takes, what works, what's really easy for your kids to understand, and what works for you, what you actually remember and what works like with your brain. So when you're first starting this, keep it loose. Don't expect perfection, because the road to actually getting more time for yourself is it's going to be messy.
Right. And I can imagine there's probably a lot of experimentation, seeing what actually works and what does not.
There is. And sometimes you might put something into place, like a boundary, and you're like, you know what, this boundary, it really isn't that important to me. But decision and putting that boundary is giving you so much information that when you start like using it and start enforcing it, you might see, oh, it's really not that, but it might be this. And then you can go and figure out exactly what boundary you need to set for yourself and your time to really make sure you're happy.
I love that. L is for laws. Describe to us what that means.
So once you have like your boundaries pretty much in your head, or once you have some ideas of visual aids that you want to use, you need to communicate those to your family. And a lot of times people will just put up a general, like, don't bother me in this time. But kids like immediately go past that. So they have to be brought into the decision-making. And the best way to do this is through family meetings, or if you don't know, do family meetings, you can do it at the dinner table. And just first saying like your reasons for the law, be like, for here, it's always for me about my work time. Like if I'm interrupted when I'm writing, it'll take forever to get back on my train of thought. Right. So I would bring it up to my kids and I'd say like, okay, like I just need this time, this focused time to work. And I cannot have you come in and disturb me during like these hours. And then I give it to them. I'm just silent after that. And I hear what they think about it, because they're always going to have some sort of like, well, what if I need this? And what if I need that? And those are the times to answer those questions and maybe like redesign like the law a bit. But it's all about communicating what you need, making sure that your family is heard, and making a law from there.
I love that. And that's worked pretty well with your kids and just kind of the communication back and forth. And are they happy with it? Does it seem like they're okay with it?
They're totally okay with it now. But remember, loose. It was messy. Like when you first start putting these things into place, like kids fight back because they want your undivided attention whenever they so desire. And so, yeah, it's almost like, it's like a training thing. It's first saying like, I need this time. And then you're really tested the first time that they come in and they're like, oh, mom, like I need some more waffles or something. And that's when you're like, we agreed on this. And they might stomp out of the room, especially if they're older kids like mine. Mine would stomp out of the room and shut their bedroom door because they were mad. But that happened only the first time. And then it got better and better from then on. So they're happy now, but they were not happy at the beginning.
It took a little bit of work. And S is for subcontract. What does that mean?
Okay. So this is really like how we as parents, we do not have to do it all. And subcontracting and having someone else do something that you do not like, that is filled with so much guilt, especially for women. I mean, one of the big issues is like cleaning your own house is like, I heard from so much from my mom, like, oh my gosh, we have to clean the house and we have to like clean it like all the time and make sure it's like completely spotless. And what did I see growing up? I saw only my mom cleaning the house. Like my dad wasn't cleaning the house because she said he was working and we were never meant to clean the house, but she took it all on herself instead of trying to like first subcontract it to all of us, which is it's some work. It's some training that has to be done with the family. But second, like if you have the resources available and you do not like cleaning your own house, it is totally okay to hire someone to clean your house. I hire someone to come in once every 2 weeks to clean the house because we don't like it. And it does not mean, it doesn't mean we're lazy. It doesn't mean like we're wasting money. It means we have set our priorities as a family and cleaning the house is not one of them. So that's like, that's about subcontracting. It's really figuring out what things do I not like to do that someone else could do better than I could. And I have the resources to make that happen, or I am willing to sacrifice other things to make that happen. And then make it happen. This could be like subcontracting school to your child's teacher if you're back in in-person learning, or even in virtual learning, like not being your kid's teacher, but rather putting it back to the school and to the classroom and being like, okay, you need to go ask your teacher about this. You need to go ask your teacher about this, and subcontracting all of that to the school instead of trying to take it on yourself when you don't even like it.
I love that you bring that up because so many things like that cause so much undue guilt for moms for some reason. And what's the impact that you've seen of a mom who is carrying around all that guilt? What do you see in them, in those parents?
I see the overwhelm, the almost expectation that they have to do it all. And if they don't do it all, they're somehow failing. So this comes up a lot with moms and homework, because that's one of the things I help parents with, getting a homework routine for their kids. And many parents, like the kids will bring their homework and then they won't do it. Or like it'll be fighting like for like head to head, and homework takes like 2 to 3 hours each night, and mom's not happy and kids not happy, but they think that this is the thing that has to be done so that their child will be successful in the future. And it's just not. It's them taking on the fight and the responsibility for doing the work. They take it on themselves instead of pushing that back to the child and to the teacher and having that happen within the child and teacher relationship. But it just causes fighting, and it's miserable. It is miserable when you see someone in this situation. Like my heart goes out to them because I was once there and I know how it feels.
Let's talk about that for a little bit, because I think so many parents are struggling with that right now during the pandemic, whether they are being homeschooled or whether they are in school. I think that's a huge struggle, is getting your kids to do homework. So what are some other tips that you have besides, like you said, pushing it back, more of the responsibility on the kid and the teacher?
So the big thing with kids and homework, and especially in the elementary school levels, is that it is totally okay to fail at this time. Like we almost want our kids to experience the failure they have of like not doing an assignment in the elementary school grades, because there is literally no repercussions for like getting into a good middle school or getting into a good high school, because it's elementary.
Right.
So if they're not doing the homework now, first of all, we're in a like horrible situation. I mean, this pandemic, it's awful. Like there is no planning around it. And the only thing that we can do as parents is to keep a positive relationship going with our kids. Like that is first. And then homework and missing assignments come second during this time, because there's so much collective stress around right now that it's not even a worry. So parents who have a hard time getting their kids to do the homework, the first thing is to transfer that problem over to the kids. It's to say, okay, I got an email from your teacher. Here's what it says. I had to do that doing virtual schooling. I just gave it to my second grader. I'm like, here's what she says you're missing. And then we say to ask. So like ask the question, what's your plan to solve it? And then they might be silent. and
I don't know.
Yeah, they'll go, I don't know, because they usually expect us to tell them what they're going to do now. And that's why they're like, I don't know. And so you have to let that uncomfortable silence happen. And sometimes it takes like 10 seconds and sometimes it takes 30 seconds. Like I literally have to sit on my hands and count in my head. And it becomes a game as to how high I can count up to in my head before my kids will give me an answer. Like that's the only way I can stay silent.
Oh, man.
But when they do, they will give you an answer, and it'll probably be an answer. It won't be the first thing that you thought of on how to do it, or it might be an even easier solution than you thought of. I mean, you probably think, oh my gosh, like I'm going to have to like take away some activities or something to get them to do missing assignments. And your kid's response might be, I'll just do it.
Great.
That's what my son, that's what my son has always surprised me with. I'm like, okay, what do we do here? And he'll be like, I'll just do it. I'm like, okay.
and does he follow through? Has he followed through?
He followed through because it was him who came up with the problem solving solution. And then I stayed out of it. So we have to know that they do have the ability to problem solve. So I threw at you another acronym there. That was TASK. That was just keep conversations on task, transfer the power, ask the question, stay silent, and know that they can problem solve.
Oh, I love that. All right, JoAnn Crohn, she's an author, parent educator, teacher, and the founder of No Guilt Mom. Thank you so much for taking the time and being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Yes, we'll talk to you soon.